It has been 15 months since Russia went to war with Ukraine. While countries across the globe are making efforts in brokering peace between the two warring nations, there is another looming threat at the other end of this spectrum. Watch this special report to find out.
June 28, 1914, a young Serbian patriot shot and killed Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This started a sequence of events which led to World War I. Europe is once again on edge. The Russia-Ukraine war has been raging for over 450 days now. Russia is relentless in its assault, and the West continues to pump in weapons to bolster Ukraine. But the biggest fear keeping the world on tenterhooks is the big question: can the war spill over the borders of Ukraine? There have been near misses. In November 2022, a missile strike on NATO member Poland raised fears of a potentially catastrophic spillover. Earlier this month, these images raised the spectre of escalation. Moscow accused Ukraine of orchestrating a plot hatched by the US. 2 drones were shot down above the Kremlin on the 3rd of May. Moscow accused Ukraine of trying to kill President Vladimir Putin. It warned of consequences. And now Washington is indirectly blaming Ukrainians for the audacious attack. Earlier this week, Russia thwarted an attack in southwestern Belgorod region. It claimed it killed more than 70 Ukrainian fighters. Ukraine denies any role in the raid, but these images released by Moscow are worrisome. They show American-made military hardware used in a cross-border raid from Ukraine into Russia. Putin once again warned the West. The Biden administration is now probing claims that American arms were used on Russian soil. Berlin is now probing fresh leads that Ukrainians might be responsible for the Nord Stream gas pipeline explosions that took place in September last year. With such provocations, the big question is, will the US trust Kyiv by arming it with F-16 jets? Something Ukraine says is needed desperately to conquer the skies and push back the Russians. After much reluctance, President Joe Biden has agreed to allow allies to train Ukrainian forces on F-16 fighter jets and eventually to provide the aircraft themselves. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
For more on this, we are being joined by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, retired, senior fellow and military expert for defense priorities from Sterling, Virginia. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thanks for having me.
So the current conflict is already a battleground of proxy wars, but we have seen spillover attacks a few too many times. Whether it was the missile which landed in Poland, or the attack over the Kremlin, or the recent fighting in Belgorod, is it just a matter of time before the war goes international?
Well, that's certainly the big fear, and it's a valid concern, and something I've been worried about really since the outset of this war in February of 2022. And you see that the stakes keep getting ratcheted up, not only with this Belgorod incident here that you're referring to, which, you know, there's black and white evidence there. There's U.S. armored vehicles on Russian soil. So it's pretty hard for the Ukrainian government to claim that they didn't know anything about it when they're the only ones that have those weapons. And of course, Moscow is not concerned about, you know, anybody hiding behind words. They view all this as being orchestrated by the United States. Now, just a couple of days ago, it was actually earlier today, the deputy head of the Ukrainian intelligence group said that they have an actual plan, an active plan to assassinate Vladimir Putin. They outright said this. Now, you can imagine if they ever succeeded that Russia would almost certainly believe that the United States was involved with it. And even if we weren't, that's what they would believe. And then the risk of nuclear escalation would just go through the roof. And we just have to be very, very careful that we don't take any actions that would allow that to happen from the Western perspective.
Right. Now, the West has been supporting Ukraine with all its demands. The fighter jets are also in the works now. But is the West comfortable knowing that there is no guarantee of its weapons being used within Ukraine's borders?
I think that there is a growing concern about that. And my belief is the fact that this report that came out from the United States today in such a prominent publication saying that we have evidence that the Ukraine was behind the drone strikes on the Kremlin earlier in May, I think is a shot across the bow to the Ukrainian people saying, hey, look, there's some limits here. And if you keep using our stuff to potentially attack Russia on their territory, that could be bad for us. And if it does, we're going to make sure they know where it's coming from. I think that that's kind of a warning to Kiev.
All right. Thank you so much for joining in on the broadcast. That was Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis joining us from Virginia.
Thank you.